tell us who you are, what kind of operation you're running, and we'll start right here with Brooke.
I am Brooke Salvaggio of Urbavore Urban Farm and Compost Collective KC. I'm a regenerative farmer. I'm also a composter and a food activist, and I'm just really excited to be here and share my insights.
All right. So glad you are here.
My name is Andrea Clark, and I'm a food system planner at KC Healthy Kids, and we host the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition. I am not a farmer, but I do a lot of work to make sure that our local, state, and federal policies support the people around me that are.
Hello. My name is Alana Young. I am a farmer, an urban farmer with Young Family Farm KC. I also consider myself a community organizer, community mobilizer, so I kind of bring that lens and that perspective. I'm excited to be here. Is that good?
Hello, thank you for coming and staying. I'm Dan Krull. I'm the current president of Manheim Gardens, which is just down the street from Young Family Farm, their sister farm, right? And co-founder of Good Oak, and we are doing the stuff you saw in the movie, trying to save the soil. Bees, trees, and animals are our main focus, and we're currently working on an 800-acre farm school, regenerative farm school at Overland Gardens. So, you know when you know it.
Beautiful. So I'm just going to kick it off for questions, and then shortly after, we're going to open it up for Q&A for the audience. Hopefully this will be a dynamic conversation between all of us. You see that microphone up there? When you're really excited about a question, feel free to come over there and we'll make sure to integrate your questions to the panel. So, okay, so what did y'all think of this movie? I mean, how does that, as farmers, you are the one doing this here in Kansas City. What kind of reactions do we have about this?
I don't have a mic. I mean, I was incredibly wowed. I know all this stuff, and I've dedicated my life to these causes, and still, I was laughing, I was crying, I was like literally nodding the whole film, and I had to stop because I realized how stupid I must look. But I was just adamantly like into everything they were saying, and yeah, I mean, if that didn't inspire you guys, well, we're fucked.
I'm glad that they talked about the farm bill a whole lot, because that's about all I'm going to talk about today.
Now everybody knows what that means, what that is.
Yeah. We've been, along with the folks at this table, doing a lot of work to educate our members of Congress from Kansas and Missouri about local and regional food systems, about regenerative practices, about supporting small urban family farms, and this just really highlighted a lot of the reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was really well done. I thought it took a really big problem, kind of broke it down into digestible chunks. I think sometimes when we're thinking about big problems, it can become very overwhelming. It's like, how do I fit in this picture, and in what ways can I actually move things forward? And so what I loved about the film is we didn't just kind of stay stuck in the sort of talking about the larger system that's flawed. There was a sort of an intentional focus on how quote unquote ordinary folks can be a part of the solution. And so I'm a big proponent of that. There are lots of systems that are a disservice to us as individuals. And so I try to live in that space of hope. And so that's what I really took away from the film.
Go ahead and clap. I feel like I should say I didn't like it since everybody else did. I would echo my friends up here on the stage and say that I can find very little of that film that I was not very pleased with. I think it's even better than the first film.
Much better.
I think a really strong takeaway message, if you can catch it, is that this is easy. Like, we can actually do this. Like, it's not, it actually is, it's profitable, right? So it, you know, it is a huge problem, but the huge problem is really just the implementation. And once we actually go to do this, really, if we just walked away from the fields and let nature take its course, it would fix itself. That's how easy this is, right? So we can do it. We can really do it. We just need to make the right choices. I thought particularly like with Dwayne Johnson with the, you know, lymphoma covering his body, it's just, I mean, just to see that and to realize at the same time that it's totally unnecessary. We don't need that at all. There's no need for it. It's never called for. And if we just stop using it, and everything will be better, right? So that was an excellent movie. I'm going to tell as many people as I can to watch it. So.
Yes.
That's a good point. It's going to be here all week. Thanks to Brian from the Independent Film and the Glennwood Arts Center. So that's what you can do. If you want to know, I got ego anxiety, I'm trying to figure out what can I do, tell your friends. It's going to be here all week. Scan the QR code. So let's take that segue that Dan had about implementation of regenerative agriculture in Kansas City. Joe, running some sort of farm, you're involved in the ecosystem building. What is the opportunity? Because we're in the Midwest. This is farm country. You know, there's billions of dollars of, we feed the world here in this area of the country. So what is the opportunity for regenerative agriculture, where we're at and where we're going here in Kansas City?
Well, I'm going to focus on the urban region right here in Kansas City because I'm an urban grower. And obviously, you know, we have an absurd amount of poorly managed rural land that can quickly and cheaply become regenerative. But even in our urban spaces, I mean, come to my 13.5 acres on Kansas City's east side, and I will blow your mind with the amount of food we are growing, the amount of carbon we are sequestering, the soil we are building, the amount of photosynthesis that is happening on this land, the amount of animals that we're feeding that feed the community. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And this is 13.5 acres on a piece of land that was slotted for public housing that never happened because the not-for-profit was busted for laundering money through these public housing projects that they were creating. Yeah, so some really gross, corrupt situation. We managed to get this land and we just transformed it. And in the last 2 years, we've composted over 1 million pounds of food waste from you guys. On our urban farm, 5 miles east of the plaza, that food waste goes directly on my soil and it sequesters carbon when it grows these incredibly healthy, nutrient-dense plants. Those plants become food, you eat them, you throw out the waste, we start it all over again. So the amount of drawdown that is happening on this land is serious. So I say all that to point out that Kansas City, like a lot of Midwestern sprawling cities, has a lot of blighted and underutilized space. We're not New York City. We don't need to come up with technologies to farm on rooftops. We don't need to do all that sexy urban farming stuff. We can do really straightforward regenerative agriculture literally in our backyards. And on the myriad of 13-acre spaces that are sitting all over the city, or the 20 or the 30-acre spaces, I mean, I feel like the ground is so ripe here in Kansas City. And, honestly, the policy just needs to catch up. Because in case you guys didn't know, we're in big trouble with the city right now, and they've been trying to shut down some of our initiatives for the past 7 months. And we've been fighting like mad. Pulled away from sequestering carbon so we can talk to jerks in suits and try to prove that what we do matters. So, I don't know, I'm angry, but I'm hopeful, and I think Kansas City is perfectly positioned to be part of this revolution. So.
Well, we're talking about policy. There are so many things that were talked about in the film, or that weren't talked about, that directly come back to policy. So at the local level, things like land use and zoning laws impact whether or not you can legally grow food in your front yard. So don't do it before you talk to the planning department. They should have put that in the documentary. Or just do it until someone complains. But I didn't tell you that. Perfect. So local planning and zoning laws. State laws about conserving prime farmland instead of sprawling developments. State laws about how small, under-resourced farmers can access grants and loans through Department of Agriculture at the state level. Those are policy decisions. Those are laws and rules that can be changed. At the federal level, so many of the Natural Resource Conservation Service programs that fund farmland conservation, forest conservation, promoting the use of regenerative agricultural practices, research by university extension or farmer-led research, and peer-to-peer education. All of these things are funded through the Farm Bill. I could go on and on about that. But all of these things are influenced by policy at the local, state, and federal level. And there are ways to speak out at every level to support our local food producers that are using regenerative practices. We actually have some, the Missouri Coalition for the Environment and the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition have some handouts about the Farm Bill and the impact on especially crop farmers, regenerative agriculture, urban farming, and I also have some advocacy postcards about the Farm Bill that you can send to your representatives and senators to let them know why we need a Farm Bill ASAP. It really needs to happen in the first few months of 2024 because after that they go on recess and it's an election year, so we really need to get a Farm Bill passed in the first 3 months. And there are so many opportunities to support the work that all the farmers up here are doing and make those resources more accessible to them by reducing some of the regulations and the red tape. But come grab a few postcards. We got a QR code where you can pull up our Farm Bill advocacy guide that has all of the bills that we're supporting, information about what those bills do, contact information for your elected officials, social media, graphics and sample posts, all kinds of stuff to help influence this really important policy.
I was just going to add, I think, to your question, and then to your point, Brooke, that really the possibilities are endless when it comes to kind of supporting regenerative ag in Kansas City or greater Kansas City. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone needs to go out and start farming on their land. And I think sometimes when we can get into these discussions, or even watching, a really inspiring film, it's like, okay, so where do I start with this farm on my property? And that's not everybody's calling. And that's okay. But I do think that there are some very specific ways that folks can get involved and can support sort of regenerative agriculture. You can do things like purchasing from and supporting the local farmers that are already doing the work. It could mean taking a few steps to learn how to compost at your own home. That doesn't mean you need to create a big composting system. But I think really small steps that are actually going to be reasonable and feasible, because we're all busy. We all have work lives and personal lives and a lot of things that are pulling our time. And it's not in everyone's cards to start a 13-acre farming adventure. Some other things that you can do, absolutely, is volunteering or supporting nonprofit organizations that are focused on this type of work. Whether policy advocacy is something that's important to you, maybe you want to support an organization that supports farmers. So an example of that would be Cultivate KC, right? So I would say just connect with folks to find out what the opportunities are, and take some small steps that are going to be feasible for managing in your life. And if you are interested in sort of embarking on the regenerative agriculture growing space, then there are definitely resources and supports out there for you to do so.
You can also volunteer at their farms.
Yes, we love volunteers.
Apprenticeships, that's right.
All season long, we love volunteers.
I don't think I have anything to add to that question that they didn't already say, but I will remind you, there's a microphone right there, and you have a question, you should go over there and ask one, because we'll answer it. We have great answers.
We have big talkers is what we've got.
Dan, I feel like you're trying to do something really big in Kansas City. You have, anybody heard of this place? I think a lot of people heard of it. I'm being joking, but Powell Gardens. Tell us about what is going on with Powell Gardens.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it in public a whole lot yet, so you guys are kind of getting a fresh, dose here. But for the past 2 years or so, Jacob and I and our team have been negotiating the use of Powell Gardens acreage. So they have about 900 or 1,000 acres of land, but they only use maybe 120 of it for the main garden. And in their long-term planning, they heard about and were interested in regenerative agriculture and reached out to the community and bumped into our business partner, Bob Urban, and Bob got us involved with them. And over the past few years, we've put together this plan to transform that acreage into a regenerative farm and use it as a place to train future farmers. I used to say young farmers, but it's really future farmers. Because, there's a lot of people who are interested in this of all ages. So in Congress with that, we are also working on a plan to purchase tilled ground and to convert it into a savanna mimicking agroforestry program. And we would like to do that on a large scale. We, not even jokingly, say 50 million acres eventually. But, So if you look at the Powell Gardens project and this plan to buy tilled ground and turn it into perennial agriculture, one thing that we can do quickly is plant that tilled ground. Finding farmers to manage it is a little bit slower. So we're trying to do both at the same time. So our big vision here is to use the Powell Gardens project and the name of Powell Gardens and that beautiful facility to draw attention to regenerative agriculture in our region in general, train the next generation of regenerative farmers, and access land, using our talkers on stage here, to drum up funding to buy that land and build the farms of the future. And by the time those farmers are ready to step into those farms, they're good. So that's just a small bit.
Can I ask, where is your,
I'm just curious, like, the funding, or are you thinking private investors? Like, what is the avenue to get the funding?
This microphone thing is on. It's interesting. There's a lot of funding available for farming in general, for regenerative farming. My business partner Jacob recently went to a regenerative farming conference in Colorado, and we learned a lot of things that we didn't understand. One is that they really like to have an asset to back the investment. But if you can figure that part of it out, if you can find an acreage that can be purchased, or if you have equity, or if you have an existing farm business, there are a lot of organizations and individuals out there that want to fund this sort of thing. I'd like to say that I'm an expert on that, but we haven't quite figured it out yet, but we're getting closer. So, for example, we've had some trouble funding the Powell Gardens project through some of these regenerative funders because they're looking for land that we own, right? But there's plenty of individuals who have high net worth who are interested in this, who watch films like this. And so what we're doing is just meeting them one at a time and getting introductions and feeding them delicious meat that we raised and just trying to find them a little bit at a time. But I wish I knew exactly how to make that a silver bullet, but we're plugging away. So
We appreciate you walking and tackling, and if anybody's interested, please, you know where to go.
Yeah, if you have millions that you feel like donating.
anyone on the stage?
yeah.
So I want to, one thing that I've noticed in Kansas City is that we are one of the largest cities in terms of geographic size in the country, in terms of the amount of land that we have in the city. And if you look at the east side, it's just full of underutilized, undevelopable, or some of it is developable, but a lot of it is just underutilized land that's just sitting there. And so that's a policy conversation that I want to have. And so I'm really excited about pushing that.
Yeah, please. Well, policy, but also environmental justice conversation, right? I am originally from the east side of Kansas City, born and raised. That's where I am currently. That's where I do my community mobilization work. And the reality is that there's thousands of vacant lots, but a lot of them have been contaminated by lead and other things from developers who came in and tore stuff down and didn't follow processes because they didn't care about the folks that were living in the space. And unfortunately, that's a story for the east side of Kansas City. And so it's not as simple as, well, I'm just going to purchase this lot and I'm just going to start growing food. The reality is there's a lot of work that has to be done to remedy what has taken place over many years. And so, there's of course the policy standpoint of increasing the access to the land and usage of the land, but then once we have the land, how do we ensure that the soil that's there is actually healthy for the production of food? And so there's some other conversations that need to happen that I think are starting to happen, but is a part of the story, that environmental justice and environmental racism piece as well. Sorry, I snatched it up.
I just want to add on to what Alana is saying, because we talk about all of these vacant, underutilized, blighted lots on the east side, but it's like that for a reason, and it's because of history and decades of residential segregation, and disinvestment, and white flight, and there's a whole history there. And so when we talk about going in and, taking these lots, they used to be something, it used to be housing and shops and businesses, and it's vacant and blighted because we enacted policies to make it that way. But we can use, I believe, we can use policies to reverse disinvestment and things like that as well. So the justice piece of it, and working with communities, and supporting the work that's already going on in those communities, because there's farms all over the east side. If we're supporting the work that's already happening, I think that that's the first place to start, is working with those communities, supporting the work that they're doing, changing policies so that the land bank will once again be interested in leasing and selling lots to urban farmers, to the farmers that live and sell food and donate food in those communities. That's justice has to be a fundamental part of that work.
We got a question. Please.
Hi, I am just interested to know how we're going to break that cycle for the young folks in university who are studying agriculture right now and learning the non-regenerative way. I'm concerned about them being exposed to chemicals over decades, such as the farmer in the film. And I'm wondering, how are we reaching out and how are we breaking that cycle of that educational wrong? Because they're being taught the wrong thing. I mean, I'm just interested if anyone knows how we're doing that.
Take a stab.
Yeah, take a stab.
That's a good question, right? Honestly, I'm a bit jaded on changing the system. There's a Buckminster Fuller quote that I really like that's basically something along the lines of, don't try and change the existing, regime, just create something that makes it obsolete, right? And so that's what we need. So this is why Jacob and I focused on the idea of let's just buy land and put perennial trees on it. Like, why don't we just do that? Like, we can't necessarily go, and we're not gonna stop Monsanto or whatever it is now, Bayer, from doing what they do, but we can stop people, we can lead by example. We can say, look, we did this thing. And you know, and we're gonna wind down in a second. Let me leave you with this idea of hope. But if one thing in this film I think that was missing, that I would have put in there, is what it looks like on these farms, what it's like to be there, right? There is a human history of abundance and teamwork, right, that we all used to experience. When we work with animals on the farm, we're trying to maximize their welfare, we look at their evolutionary context. Where did they come from? What would they be doing if we weren't raising them for food? If you can mimic that context, they will have the most amazing life that they've ever had, and then you get to eat them. So what you realize very quickly is that humans are part of the animals on your farm, right? What is our context? Where should we be? We are literally savanna creatures, right? So these big farms with the tilled ground, they are mines. We've been mining the wealth of this country for 300 years, and it's almost gone. We have 60 years left. But imagine walking through one of those fields, and it's full of giant pecan trees or chestnuts. And everywhere you look, there are mushrooms, and there's berries, and there's squirrels, and there's deer. Those are food, by the way. You know, and you're surrounded by abundance, and you work with your family and your neighbors to grow that abundance. This is the world that we could create. It's the world we used to have. It wasn't that long ago, right? I've been to a place like that. You know, it's called New Forest Farms. Mark Shepard planted it about 25 years ago. It's 125 acres, chestnuts and hazelnuts. It looks just like that. And being there changes your entire perspective. Jacob and I met at Manheim Gardens, right? Alana, just down the street, Brooke Farm, just down the street. We are building society through food, sitting at the table and sharing food, growing the food together. We're building community. This is our future, right? So if I can leave you with anything, let's move towards that, a future of abundance.
Yeah, I'd like to say,
Well, just quickly, I mean, what he said was fabulous, and I'm not trying to top it or even talk on the same side. No. But I think he's right with his jaded opening piece. I don't think we're going to change the Monsantos of the world, and I don't think you guys saw that gross chain of money starting at the top, it's funneling into the universities. You and I cannot change that. And so those kids at universities are going to get fed that rhetoric. But we do need to create an alternative system like he's talking about, but also an alternative education system, a grassroots education system where, we're getting this film out there as a community to those same kids that are stuck in those crappy, agronomy lectures and whatnot. So I think that's also something you all can do. You can organize just like watch parties. Even you can organize events, anything. But I think we all know college kids studying agriculture, and we can get to them.
And I will say that I did find out that Kansas City is the only screening that I've been told that had a land-grant university put their logo on the bill of the distillery. Big thing. You want to say something? And let's get to the next question.
Yeah, so K-State, their Olathe campus in the horticulture department has a master's in urban food systems, and they are teaching sustainable regenerative practices. There's also an apprenticeship program called Growing Growers through them that is also putting people interested in working on farms, pairing them with opportunities and mentors.
like they can come to our instance. Yeah.
Something that's also, it's not funded by the Farm Bill, is the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act, which still has not been renewed. There's funding for farm to school programs, and not only does it introduce children in schools to just how food is grown, it funds school gardens, but it also funds local procurement so that schools are buying local food from their states to go onto the meal tray. And some of those programs are quite robust. In Lawrence, there are high school students getting paid to work on a production farm at their high school. They sell that produce at the farmer's market. The school district buys that food to go into their school meals, and they're using all regenerative practices. So there is some opportunity. I don't think the big agroeconomy, agribusiness schools, maybe eventually when they figure out that they can save money, but there are other ways that education is getting sprinkled out there.
I retired from the Department of Agriculture 10 years ago. I'm jaded. 25 years of that was enough. Anyway, I'm
Which
retired.
university?
Lived in South Kansas City. Thinking about moving to Cass County, and I'm wondering if there's anything going on in that area right now. Like the Richards Valley area that was kind of done in 1985. I never did get over that. That took me off. But anyway, it's a whole tract of land down there.
That's Kansas, Missouri.
In Kansas, Missouri. And they basically shut down an entire Air Force base and Fort Hood Company turned over just so they could have a place to put their cars on the road. And I just thought that was the coolest thing that ever happened in Kansas City. I don't think about it often, but when I do, it still makes me mad. So what do we do about that tract of land? Nothing, or is there any suggestions?
I can't speak to that tract of land, but I do know that New Growth is an organization that works in West Central Missouri supporting local regional food systems and small producers, and they're doing a lot of the work in Cass County is within their area, and there's a lot of like small specialty crop farms that are going through as well.
Yeah, another question?
You guys have incredible general examples of great ways that we can all as consumers and constituents take action. Specifically because I know you've had such great firsthand experience in Kansas City. What public offices or city officials, I guess, would you say directly you would recommend as resources, or I think there's just frankly numbers, right, to like highlight those, that you would say are maybe areas as voters, people to focus on as those people or resources?
Yeah, I understood your question perfectly. Just trying to come up with the list.
I know, right? My head's doing sustainability.
Oh, no.
I mean, there's certain tracts of land that I've been trying to for us, and so I mean I think leadership starts at the top. You get the organization or city that you deserve, and so city manager, mayor, every single city council member. I think if you're in their district and you're asking, and we're asking collectively, we have community support. People want this. They love this regenerative concept, and we want to overcome this. We see there's so much land sitting there. We can use it as an asset. We can use it as a resource to grow food, sequester carbon, create nutrient-dense food. So I'm a believer here, and I believe that maybe collectively, if we're sending emails.
Can I speak? Yeah, go ahead.
I will say that a good place to start, of course, is with your city council representatives. I would say that in person, if you're able to arrange an in-person meeting, or if you just show up and wait, if you have the capacity to do that, that's a good place to start. I think that when you're thinking about not just city council, but the city of Kansas City leadership in general, they sort of tend to see the prospect of regenerative agriculture using vacant lots for growing as diametrically opposed to some other needs, like affordable housing and other things. And they also have, I'll say a biased perspective, but a perspective nonetheless, that a lot of folks jump into urban farming ventures without a clear plan, and then abandon said venture and leave the land aesthetically displeasing. So if you're going into a meeting or are interested in advocating for a policy change or for a specific execution plan, keep those barriers and those mindsets in mind as you have the conversation, and be prepared to actually have a rebuttal or to just address those concerns. I think when you're entering any conversation with anyone about any topic, the strategic way to handle that is to kind of prepare yourself mentally for what their challenge might be. And if you're able to do that and do that well, then I think you can have a more beneficial conversation. If you kind of leave it in the place of, well, this is what I think needs to happen with this land, and y'all need to get on board because our earth is dying. And if that's where you lead off, you're probably not, you're gonna get the walls. So that's what I would suggest. They're just people. They're people like all the rest of us. They just have vying priorities in their mind and legislatively. And so kind of addressing that in your conversation is gonna probably yield better results.
And just to give the credit to, people who do action on the city council of Kansas City, Missouri, they just passed last year rotation, the ability to raise animals in the way that we just saw them. So that was illegal last year, and now it's not. Now it is illegal. So that's good.
I know we're running out of time, but if, Dan and I, particularly Dan, my husband, who has a background in urban planning and public policy, he is the reason we have 13.5 acres in Kansas City's urban core. He knows how to find urban tracts of land and how to attack mode get them. So, we don't have a lot of time to consult, but we are open to it. You can find our contact information on our website. We love to talk about that kind of stuff. So, contact us. But I will say, Mayor Clinton Lucas maybe a couple months ago put out a Facebook post bitching literally about the city owns too much land and it's completely underutilized and it's sucking up resources and we're just mowing it. I want to see this stuff put to good use. I of course responded, well, when are you going to come out to my farm and see about what we're doing? But anyway, they are aware of it and even call themselves out. They just don't know how to connect dots yet. So be active and connect the dots for them.
One thing I would say too is, especially if you're not in Kansas City, Missouri, if your city has a sustainability office or an environmental office, that's a really great place to go because they're already concerned with stormwater runoff, water pollution, and soil quality and biodiversity and all those types of things. So I would say that they would be a strong ally for this type of stuff. And also, there's at least a regional Kansas City climate action plan that has a section on food systems and talks about regenerative agriculture. So that is something that you can bring in and say this needs to be a priority for our city. And your city might have one as well. So there are a lot of environmental allies, I think, in the region. They have a lot of influence, but your elected officials are the ones with the power. So, like Alana said, building relationships with your city council members is a great place to start too.
So we have about 10 minutes left, so let's keep going with the questions, and then I want to make sure everybody kind of gets their last word if there's anything that they wanted to say that you didn't have a chance to say.
Well, I don't really have a question. I'm a regenerative health practitioner, so as the film is showing that the soil being regenerative, we as human beings are also regenerative, and it's really important as the practitioner in this field that we know that this thing outside of us is very important to us. So I've been, I had a watch party for Kiss the Ground, and I'm really looking forward to having the watch party for this. And just, I think that's a lot of the things that we can do ourselves is just what I like to do on social media.
Get close to the microphone.
What I like to do on social media or in my community is ask people to go to the grocery store and the farmers markets and ask for regenerative soil practices. Regenerative soil practices. The more we hear this, the more we put our money into that, that's where the people that want money will go to. So that if we wanted to, I don't fight, I'm the best warrior. Best warriors don't go to war, they don't battle. So talking about the Monsantos of the world and if their money isn't coming to them through that venue, guess what's gonna happen? They're going to change. That's how we fight that battle. It's not a fight. We are creating a new system. So please listen to that. Thank you all so much for being here, and I appreciate you. But don't forget about yourself. You are also regenerative, and you can do the same thing with your own bodies. Thank you.
Is there anybody who is keeping track of the votes locally with all the local politicians? We live in Kansas City, Missouri, okay? Is there somebody that we can, track, that will track how everybody's voting on various and sundry things? Because that's where the power lies, right? Is if we vote in the people we want, okay? That, and one other thing, you can grow an awful lot of trees here in this area that provide fruit and are good carbon sink trees, okay? Just anybody who didn't know that. Probably everyone does.
A lot of local nonprofit or state nonprofit organizations, especially ones that do policy advocacy, will do things around election time, like send out surveys to elected officials to ask about their views on certain things. They'll put together lists of how elected officials have voted on certain issues to show their track record. So there are kind of like local or state level kind of like watchdog organizations that usually provide that information around like election time.
I don't know if they're actively doing this, but I feel like that's something Cultivate KC, at least for KCMO, would take on and create a real straightforward format for that around election time for people like you who want to know, okay, where do I throw my votes? We can't all personally just do all the research. We're busy. So we can find trusted organizations to do that research for us and tell us what to do. I think cultivatekc.org is a good place to start.
Women's Political Caucus is really good at doing those things.
Okay.
She said Women's Political Caucus is very good at doing those things. And I'm very curious about the answer to your question, and I want to personally look into that, if that seems to be important.
I don't have a specific answer to your question, but I will say that one avenue for sort of local political advocacy, those committee meetings are open to the public. And a lot of folks may not realize that. The meetings that are at City Hall, they publicize when those meetings are taking place. They publicize the agenda. If you go to the clerk's website, City of Kansas City, I think it's clerk.kcmo.org, something to that effect. But you can go on there, you can look at the committee schedule, you can look when it's meeting, you can look and see what the ordinance is, you can look at the language, you can look at the end result after the meeting is over. So if you yourself wanted to take that on as an effort each week to check in, that's definitely something that you can do. They accept public testimony, so you can always stand up and say, hey, I'm in support of this, or I have concerns about this. You can also follow up with your city council reps after that committee meeting has taken place. Hey, I was in this committee hearing. I noticed that you had questions along this line, or that you voted in this way. I have some concerns about that, or I'm in support of that. And so, each of us as individuals, we have that right and that opportunity to do so.
And that's every city. Yep. Or county. I don't live in a city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your county government.
Your county's commissioners can do
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. The question was every city and every county. That's right. And just a quick tip on having done this a little bit, CC their assistants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then there's no excuses there. So let's do a lightning round of the final conclusions or thoughts, takeaways. This is your platform. What do you want your community to know?
Yeah. Are you sure you want to do an open introduction with us?
Yes, I do. Especially you. You want to start?
Me? Let's see. Ooh, I don't know. Let's see. I think that it's important to kind of keep things in perspective. The point that I had made earlier, and I think Dan kind of alluded to as well, really take the opportunity to build relationship, not just with your city officials, but with folks in your community, and find small ways that you can make an impact. I will say that for myself and my family with Young Family Farm, we didn't set out to like change the whole food system for America. And really, we didn't set out to change the food system for Kansas City, Missouri. I think some folks might argue that we've had a significant impact on the food system of Kansas City, Missouri, but really, we just wanted to connect with our community and help give food to our neighbors. Like, that was literally what we wanted to do, is grow food for our family and for our neighbors. And so, you know, as cliche as it sounds, every single one of us can make an impact in Kansas City, in your county, whatever county that is, right? And really just across the nation. It doesn't have to be a big orchestrated ordeal, okay? A big problem and lots of small seeds of hope, right, as a solution. So find a way to get plugged in. Whatever way feels comfortable to you, whatever way feels authentic to you. You don't have to be someone you're not. If you're not the kind of person to go to a committee hearing and stand up and testify, that's not the place for you. Okay, so find a way that feels authentic, feels true to you, and a way that you can have impact. And that's what I would ask everyone in this room today to do. You know, as you drive home, as you enjoy the rest of your weekend, think about one way that you could positively impact. Maybe it's just encourage someone to go to a watch party at the movie. It can be that simple. Maybe it's you want to try to grow a plant at your house, just one, right? Just one, and it's okay for it to be just one. And so my father says, you know, never discount humble beginnings, right? Never discount humble beginnings. So that's what I would
say. It's hard to follow that act, so it was great. Community and friendships are hugely important. I would say, I'll make it short, when they show those paper operations in the film, notice how the footage is always shot kind of weird and low. It's because it's usually secret cameras that they sneak in. If you go to modern farms where most of our food is grown, even vegetable farms, there's signs and barbed wire, and you're not allowed in there, no cameras. People have to see footage of those things out. They don't want you to know what's going on. You all are the stalwart group that has stayed all the way as everyone's trickled out, so you have the most potential for making some changes here in Kansas City. So I would say, if you want to ask these sorts of questions and have these sorts of thoughts, come volunteer on one of our operations. I'm up in Parkville right now at the Parkville Nature Sanctuary with our, I'd say, 30 of our ewes, and we're clearing bush honeysuckle. Just, ewes eat it, we kill it, it's great, we're getting rid of an invasive species, the city's on board, and, you can come help in school, come volunteer. Both Young Family Farm and Urbavore Farm have volunteer opportunities, so come out and chat with us and hang out and see those farms up close. Go to your local farmer's market, meet a farmer, buy 100 pounds of tomatoes from them, blow their mind, right? Go home, learn to can, do something that makes a difference, right? I don't even know what I would do if someone said, I want to buy 100 pounds of tomatoes, but coming out with us. We got business cards and all those kinds of things out in the lobby, other information, come chill, build fence, raise sheep, cut bush honeysuckle, do whatever you want to do.
I'll just highlight a couple of things that our organization is doing in ways that you can get involved with it. A couple of the areas that we work in, one is food policy. So again, we have advocacy opportunities at the local, state, and federal level that support the work that these folks are doing. If you come meet me out there, we've got information about the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition. You can sign up to get policy updates and advocacy alerts and advocacy resources. We also have, do some work in local food. So we manage Glennwood Urban Farm and Orchard over by Indy Pearson Elementary School in Kansas City, Kansas. And the food that's grown there goes to early childhood education centers, goes out in free CSA boxes to neighbors and families at those early childhood education centers. We also manage a program called Casey Food Circle, and all of the farmers and buyers that sign on are, all the farmers are using sustainable practices. And so there's a list of those farmers and restaurants or retailers that source those products. Yeah, so there are a few different ways where you can either learn about where to buy food grown with regenerative practices, or how to get involved in the advocacy side of things as well.
I would just say spend some time on the Casey Help the Kids website. There's so many resources on there. Like you just go deep in there and you just find so many cool resources. So definitely underline and bold what you just said.
Okay, I'm gonna be not romantic and really practical with you guys because I'm just all about like action and like starting tomorrow. One thing you can do, like literally any day during the week, just buy one locally produced, responsibly produced ingredient, just one a week. Okay, maybe that's meat. Maybe you don't even like kale. Just buy some pork. But buy some local food, and believe me, not all local food is created equal. Just because it's local doesn't mean it's organic or regenerative, okay? And if you need some help, with the greenwashing landscape that is regenerative or organic farming today, which it's the sad truth. If anything gets popular and it has the ability to make money, it's going to get washed down. And the Casey Food Circle is a great resource, but even within that, there's holes. So, all I can say is like, talk to people like me or anybody here and just learn, but buy local food. And then in addition to that, compost. You all create food waste, every one of you, undeniably. Even if you go out and eat every single meal, there is food waste on your plate that you can take home and compost. And you can do it for free by driving it by my farm, 5 miles east of the plaza. The city now has some free drop sites available, but you can also, if you like convenience, you can get curbside pickup through our compost company. So we are offering right now, just for you guys who stayed for the very last boring minutes of this, you can get free curbside compost pickup from us for an entire month if you go to compostcollectivecasey.com and enter Common Ground into some box that's going to pop up. My Dan's gone. He has the information. I don't really know. But you enter Common Ground, all caps, one word, and you will get free curbside compost pickup. And we're all over the metro area. You don't need to be in KCMO. Then if you like it, you can stay on and you can get bi-weekly pickup for $20 a month, weekly pickup for $30 a month. It's so freaking easy. It's the cost of a couple fancy coffee drinks, So do it. So at least do it for free for 1 month, okay? Please. It'll make a huge difference.
And do yourself a favor, grab one of those boxes of veggies when you have them from the Urbavore Farm. Like I felt so proud of myself when I had so many yummy vegetables from your farm. It was so good. And the vegetables of the Young Family Farm and the meat from Good Oak. I mean, you can bring this into your daily life. We all eat, every single day. There's no reason why there should be food waste at all at this point going into our landfills. And so the Foundation for Regeneration, Kids on the Ground, we're here to serve you. FFR is what we call it. We're promoting regenerative economies, regenerative ag, and circular economy is one of that. We started a program called Carbon Positive KC. A lot of people have eco-anxiety right now. We have carbon footprints. We're basically a group of citizens that have chosen to offset our footprints together. And so we basically buy offset projects on farms like this all around the country. And we're working on the first carbon credit of Kansas City right now. So, we'd love to add more households. That's carbon positive Casey. There's a QR code outside. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to hand it over to our host for the final word.